Good afternoon. Welcome to our second lunch and learn. Hi, everybody. The reason why we're starting promptly, because in film production, the administrative humans like us, we have to be on time. We have to be punctual. So there's no, let's wait until other people get in. You snooze, you lose. And that's the importance of production and the pre-production side of it. So today, for those who don't know, I'm Ann Wills-Caton, and my background in particular is the administrative side of film production. I am maybe perhaps they say anomaly because I truly love the admin side of it. I don't need to be a director. I don't need to be a cinematographer. I don't need to be any of that. For me, I like the administrative side of it. And what I want to share before we dive into it is you have to know what you like in film. Yes, they tell us we could have separate roles, have different roles, so that we can be different things and make more money. But the meat of it, if you want to have a successful film career, if you are registering a business, then you need to understand the foundation of filmmaking, which is your, of course, the development side of it, and then the pre-production. Right, so just by show of hands, or you could put in the group, do you have any experience in pre-production? Any prep, any administrative side of making a film? Yay, nay, not really, I'm not sure. I think so, but I do a little thing. Yes, okay, so no experience. Paula, maybe because you've done production, so you might be surprised what the administrative side of it. Nicole, some experience. Nicole being coy. Jody said yes from costume. Jillian. Jillian, what is maybe? I want to dive into the maybe element of it. All right, so yes, Jody, more from the costume side. Okay, so we have a bit of experience. Now, you could put in the chat, what is pre-production? What do we think pre-production when you are talking about filmmaking? What is that? Quickly before we begin. Don't be shy. Once you are good at prep with planning for the film, yes, correct. It's planning, it's what else? Getting you ready for principal photography, correct. What Jillian said. Yes, Paula. Wow, okay, Jillian for the win. We're moving on. Jillian win. Jillian take win. All right, so today we're going to spend 1 hour briefly, because this is very high level, learning about the pre-production side of it. And the main part of pre-production is really a script breakdown. You have to understand what your script is telling you. You have to know the cost involved. And without knowing that, then you really don't have a film. And I just brought a couple. Now, people always ask, what is a production Bible? And a production Bible is really a very big binder with everything you would have done regarding the film. It would have your call sheets, your shooting schedule, your contracts, your releases. So every time I would have done a film, I would have a number of these binders. This is the accounting, so I have a whole accounts binder. It's a lot to tell. It's a whole other storyline there, right? And so you are able to now capture all the information. It's a particular filing process that you can see. So let me just show you. This is an old document, right? So it captures exactly how you would document information after you've made a film. And we say after, but throughout the entire process, once you are being on administration, you have to be documenting every single thing, because at the end of it, you cannot sell a film unless it's one, you should have a registered business, of course. The film is its own IP. So even if someone is hiring you to be a producer or production manager on a film, it should be a registered production. If somebody is asking you to volunteer on a film and they do not have a registered business, they don't have a bank account, run the next direction. That is a hobby. It is a hobby, it's not a film. And we're no longer into hobbies, we're into making money from film production. And only do that. Also, if someone is asking you to come on their project, do they have a budget? And ask them about the distribution plan. Where do you plan to send this film? If they tell you it's going into film festivals, that is not a proper distribution plan, because you have to pay to enter film festivals. So if you say, okay, well, we're going to make the film to go into film festivals, you have the money to enter to the film festivals, you really want to honestly get an idea of what is the plan, what is the monetary plan for a film, because a film is a business. And y'all can feel free to put any questions in the comments at any point in time. So what we're going to look at, the main thing we're going to look at today is a script breakdown, because as you know, all films start with your script. We're going to look at the elements of it, the different tools or software that we use to do a script breakdown, scheduling, and budget. And I will show you samples from the TV series Mixed Up that we just did. So you will see how it all ties in together, how it all works together. Right. So what is a script breakdown? So I know if you all are here, you all have a script, or you've worked on a production, or you have an idea that you want to make a movie, or we say you want to make a film. What is it? You still need the script first. You need to identify. So the script breakdown, so once you have the script in your hand, you want to identify the elements needed to prep for the film production. Remember, we're in the baseline. So somebody asks you to make a film, you have the script, you set up the production office, you're doing all of the prep work, you have to break down the script to budget it. Who budgets a film? Production manager or a line producer will be the one to break down and budget the script, right? So once you got that breakdown, then you will know, okay, this film is actually going to cost 1.5 million, 2 million, 4 million, 10,000, whatever it is, but you really want to be able to understand the elements to know how to budget. Assistant directors can also do a breakdown and a budget as well, because they would have an idea of the elements of the script. All right, so the script breakdown, we break down each scene, and you have to read the entire script. Do not cheat. Don't just say, oh, what is the story about? Okay, boy meets girl, how many locations, a beach, a savannah, or whatever, and you didn't pay attention. Pay attention to every single element of it. And so that will determine the items needed for each department on a film. Sorry. Now, what is the element? So the element, we're looking at the object, person, process. So the script element is the object, the person, or the process identified in each scene. So when you're looking at a scene, you're going to say, okay, what is the highlight of the scene? If it starts interior day bank, then you will think, okay, I have to get access to a bank, because in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't really have build sets as yet. We don't have studio lots. So a lot of times we actually go on location. So now you're thinking, okay, can I get access to a bank? Which type of bank? How big it is? If it's just one room, can I maybe take another space and make it look like a bank setup? So now you're starting to break it down and think of all the little elements of it. That's the element. So what other elements we look at when you're reading? You will see location, it will tell you interior or exterior, the cast or the characters. And you have to really have an understanding of the cast to know what is needed. You're looking at the extras, and sometimes a script, and this is why it's important to have good scripts. You might be reading, okay, a bank, interior day bank. Jody walks to the teller, causes a scene. All right. Yes, it's Jody and the teller being identified. But what time of day is it? Do we have other people in the bank? And so now you have to factor in extras. What type of extras? How old are they? What are they wearing? That's money. That's hiring extra people. That's food. You have to study feeding these extras. So you're already thinking, if it's a bank, if it's maybe at 8 a.m. early morning versus an evening, you are starting to think about the number of players involved. And then the props involved. People in the bank, what will they have with them? They're not just going to have the hands swinging. People have phones. The props will tie into costumes. They might have the purse for them. What are they wearing? Do we have successful people in the bank? What happens? Did somebody pull out a gun? That's a prop. What type of gun? Do we need a guns wrangler? So it really, you start to break down the scene to know what's the actual interior bank scene. Jody goes to teller. That could actually be a $10,000 scene or a $50,000 scene, depending on what happens in just that one scene. All right, so you have the set dressing. How do you actually make the set look? And I want you to, that's a whole other class within doing set dressing, because it's something that we really don't factor in as much in Trinidad and Tobago, but it defines the whole world. It builds the world. And in fact, before the director goes to set, you really need to let the director sign off on certain looks. So you hire the set dresser, the production designer. They're supposed to do mock-ups and floor plans and present mood boards and a visual aesthetic for the director to say, I like this, I agree with this, let's go with this. So you want to be very careful in terms of even hiring the person for the set dressing. Costumes, makeup, this is all the things you're breaking down when you're reading one scene. And each scene, you're thinking of all of these things. What's the costume? What's the makeup? Do I need vehicles in the scene? Now, if you have vehicles driving, high-speed chase, that's a road lockup. That's police presence. That's a private street. So even if you are reading in 2 pages, after Jody jump into the car and she drive off at a high-speed chase, a high-speed chase is going to cost a lot of money depending on where you are. Because are we going through cars? Is it a private road? How many vehicles? Will the vehicle get damaged? Do I have money to hire the police to lock down the streets? Do I have a stunt driver? Do I need to bring in a stunt driver? Can Jody drive? Are we going to do a flatbed to put the car on the truck? With a flatbed is a truck. Can we put the car on the truck and then Jody will be pretending to drive? So you have to start thinking of all of these things each scene. Special effects or visual effects, livestock, meaning do you have animals involved? You're thinking of the sound or the music and any special equipment. We good so far? You could just do a thumbs up because I know it might be a lot. Great. Now, what type of software do you need when you're breaking down a script? So you have the free method. This is the free 99. You have sticky notes with each scene. You could stick up things on the board. You could use Excel. You could use Microsoft Word. Yes, Jillian Whiteman Nielsen. Question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just trying to take down my hand and I put it up by mistake.
No problem. Oh, okay. So go ahead, right?
Yes, please. You're going great.
Great. So you have the free method, free 99. It's all good. Now, I am biased. I don't like the free method because there is a particular formatting to a film breakdown. And if you don't use the right sequence, which I will show you, it throws off your entire schedule. Right? So yes, you have Studio Binder on the internet. You will get a lot of information from Studio Binder. If you haven't started following it, it's really good as a step-by-step foundation. Now, in terms of script writing, there's Final Draft. That's the one I use. People use other things, but Final Draft is industry standard for scripts. So even when somebody is hiring you to do a film, if your script written in Word, I don't really want to, that already tells me a lot, right? So you want to make sure, so when you ask them, okay, what program did you use? Are you using Final Draft? And it really sets a different standard. And the reason why you do that is because the using Word to write a script changes the sequencing and the time, which I will explain. Of course, for programs, you have Movie Magic, which is really good for your breaking down. There's Movie Magic budgeting and Movie Magic scheduling. So if as a pre-production person, a producer, line manager, you should have the Movie Magic scheduling and budgeting. And in fact, if you want to work on international productions, they will ask you, what program are you using? They want to hear you say Movie Magic, and they want to hear you say that you have Final Draft. If you don't have those things, they might, yes, they may, but it puts you in a separate category in terms of being an industry professional who knows the work in that way. Now, why Movie Magic and the Final Draft is important? Because how you break down a script is 1/8 of a page. So every time so that's how long, this is the measurement that is used to estimate the screen time and the shooting time for a scene. So for instance, every page, we will break it down 8. So this is telling us this is 1 minute of screen time. So if you have a script that is 90 pages long, you are in theory saying that's 90 minutes of film. And it's 90 minutes of film if you use the right program to write the script. If it's 90 pages from Microsoft Word, that might be a different setup because you may not be using the actual breakdown template, right? So you want to make sure the script is Final Draft. Now, when you print it out, you could use a ruler. I am familiar with script breakdowns by now, but if not, you take a ruler and you measure out 8s. And so this is how you'll break it down to know, okay, this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5, 6, 7. That's 1 page. But one of the scenes, even though it's 1/8 of a page, could be when Jody jump in the car and drive down the road on this big high street chase. although we're saying that's 1/8 of a page, that may take us 2 days to film because all kind of bacchanal, calf flip, Jody jump out, shoot them. That sequence alone is 2 days. That can cost us $100,000 to film, and it may last more than 10 seconds of film, right? So you want to be able to break it down and understand exactly what is being asked of you. And do not be afraid to question the director. Is this what you want? Now, let me just clear this. In film, the director is God. On a film set, the director is God. I think this is why a lot of people want to be directors. But all of the responsibility falls on the director. If the film is not good, it is the director's fault. If the film is not good, it is the director's fault because they have to be able to be creative enough, be informed enough to know how to, even if the producer goes and say, well, we don't have the budget for this, how well can you edit the storyline or make the changes to make it make sense, right? So the director, but on a TV series, the showrunner or the script writer is God. On a TV series like the Shonda Rhimes, the Dick Wolf, they're the God. The directors come and go, but on a film, the director is God. Yes? Good. Let's check my questions in the chat. Okay, Jody. Which one confuses you, Jody? The director, producer, or the 8, the breaking down? I might have a tutorial with that. We could do that mightn't be for today, but I can do a whole AD, that's an assistant director tutorial class. Now, what are the exceptions to the rule in terms of the 8? So we mentioned if it's a musical sequence. So you might write that the characters break out in song. Okay, if we've seen Bazadi was a musical. So we would have had to record the songs, do playback, and have them showcase in the film. So yes, it might be written as a 10-second line, but for Marshall and they to sing an entire song, that's 2-3 minutes. So you want to be mindful of that. If there's a fight or a stunt sequence, now remember, for all of these things, you have to factor in rehearsals. And as producers, you want to make sure that there's enough prep time. So another thing to note, if you are a production manager and they tell you, okay, can you work on this film for me? You can say, okay, tell me when do you plan to go to camera? And a lot of people, I kind of self-edit when I'm being recorded, right? So this is Leslie and on camera. If we have an off-camera session, I'll be a little more open, to be honest. I do self-edit. You want to make sure that they have the money to be able to do certain things. So they might say, well, we're going to camera next week. No, you're not. And another note to know if a director, a company is serious, they might, the one thing you can look at is when they already go to do a casting call. Please encourage humans to not do a casting call if you don't have the money. And so a lot of times you see people do the casting call, they haven't done a proper pre-production, they've already hired the actors, which makes no sense because there are a lot of other things to consider before you actually bring the actor on board. Actor is almost down to the end when you already know you have your systems in place and now you are there to be able to rehearse with your actors, have the funds for the costumes, you have your rehearsals, you can put those things in place. So just be mindful of that. Timing, your timeline is important. If you have the special effects or visual effects on short film or low budget productions, avoid any script with VFX because it's going to make your film not look very good. To hire proper VFX, which is visual, which happens after the film is done, that's going to cost you money. And in fact, before you film, if you know there's VFX involved, you need to reach out to a VFX consultant, let them read the script, have a couple meetings with that VFX person because they will tell you how to set up the scene to capture what they need. You know, sometimes you'll see they have little X's on the wall, they might have different green stuff. They need to tell you how to film that scene. They will tell you about plates. They will say you need a clean plate. And there's a lot of language in there that if you have filmed it and then you call the VFX person, you've already done it too late. So this is the importance of the pre-production. VFX manager, have meetings with them, talk to the director, have a rehearsal, talk it out. Crowds. I would say our filmmakers, we love to write in a good fight scene and a good party scene. No, you cannot film the actual sequence during carnival if there's dialogue. Yes, you could film the carnival sequence if you're not going to do audio. So if you want to show the characters running through a high party scene, but there is no audio involved, then yes, make it make sense. And get a camera team, get your actors available. And when when let's say synchronity happening, you get permission, because you have to do releases and you have to do a whole, we're filming here, and you get your characters to run through. But if you have to do recording, then do not do that unless you have a very good post audio system or your ADR that you can now record the characters if you're able to film within an actual party scene. Other than that, don't do that. Why? You have to do several takes. If the character didn't do it the first time properly, you have to keep going back and doing it over. And at an actual event, that is very difficult to do, which means you'll have to recreate a carnival scene, which is money, right? That's money. So as a producer, you're thinking, that's too much money. Any sort of sport performances, of course, you want to think of health and safety, insurance. Do not work on films without insurance, please. I'm just putting that out there. There's different types of insurance. There's insurance for the equipment. So the production company, the equipment company will ask you to insure their equipment. That's standard. Then there's the public liability insurance for the different locations you're filming. And then there's the workman's compensation for the cast and crew, right? So that they will all be insured. Especially if you're doing feature films, when you are trying to sell your film, that's that whole chain of title, they may ask you for certain documents, and that's the importance of having insurance in place. And of course, children, there are a lot of rules with children involved that I wouldn't go into now, but you have to have a certain amount of time that they're on camera and they're filming for. And of course, animals. Because we did Green Days, we always say Green Days was the trifactor, a period piece, children and animals involved. But with the animals, we had the dogs, we worked with the canine units, and they ended up being the animal wrangler as well. So if you do have animals, we had a lot of rehearsal time. The lead character had to go to the location and train with the dogs just to have that familiarity. But that's time, and that's money, and that's resources. So be mindful of all of those things. Now, what are the script breakdown categories? Several categories you're looking at. And what we like to do as ADs and prep, you have different colors for each area. So you want to identify all the cast in the scene, the extras, any props. And a prop is anything the character interacts with. So if I pick up this book and hit you across your face with it, this is now a prop. Or a weapon too, right? So you want to make sure you identify all your props, the costumes, makeup, the vehicles in the film. And vehicles could be anything on screen. Those are picture vehicles. But remember, although you have a picture vehicle, some vehicles need to reach on set via another vehicle. So for instance, on some of the productions I've done, the picture car was so high level, it actually had to come on a flatbed and then rest down. That's a different cost. So you want to be mindful of how the delivery of the vehicle is to be on set. Any stunts, you're noting any stunts, any special effects, any livestock, like we mentioned, like large animals, horses, cows, dogs, and of course the wrangler would be for if you have snakes. I mean, I could use Green Days again because we actually had a iguana on set. The iguana ran away. That was a whole drama. But you really want to be able to identify all of the different characters that you need for each breakdown. And I will tell you, I've reached the point where I might look at the script first to know if I really want to get involved, because then you have to understand all the elements that it's taking. So you identify all the colors. This is just a color example. You do not have to follow this. You can get your own beautiful Sharpie system, and you can have your color palette for any of the type of projects you want. So this is an example of how, as a production manager or as an AD, you will break down a script. So we're highlighting, so the yellow will tell you the location. So let's look at for scene 141 exterior recreation park D. So daytime exterior, you don't need lights, but you might need flags, you need bounce boards. So you still need equipment to be able to capture the scene. but you're looking at Katie steps back off the bus. So how many children on the bus driver? Do we need any dust and debris, or Katie or Dylan only? So you're questioning those things. What do I need? A one-day call customer. And of course, remember, you also want to factor in story days. So to be able to, every time you see day, and then the next day you see the next day, that's a whole different look for all of your characters. So that's some money involved. So the more story days you have on a film or in a film, that's costume, that's look, that's props, that's timeline, it's more money. Right, of course, the purple, a gust of wind now rocks the entire area, whipping the ground. What does that mean? Bending branches, what is that? Is that special effects? Is that visual effects? And that's the conversation you're going to have with the director as well. What are you seeing here? What do you want? Now, I just want to stick a pin. You are not going to the director to stress them out about money. That's not the director's responsibility. That's the producer's responsibility. So there is a really good relationship that happens with the producer and your AD, and then the AD and the director. The ADs are kind of like the middlemen on set. The first AD is the drill sergeant. They're not going to appear nice, although they're the best people in the world, but they have to manage the sets in a very much drill sergeant way. But the first AD job is to make sure the director gets what he or she wants, but also to make sure the production stays on time, which means affects the budget. And then the second AD, which is second assistant director, that's where that's my role. I love that role as well, because then you're able to now manage all of the other systems, communicate with each of these department heads. And the relationship between the ADs and the producer is very valuable, because now the AD will now go to the director and have that conversation. How are you feeling about this scene? Do you like this? Now, all of this is happening during the pre-production. Do not wait until you're on set to say, listen, we said we were bringing a helicopter to capture the scene and the helicopter not coming. So yeah, figure it out. The director is not happy. That affects the whole production. That's chaos, right? So you want to be mindful of that, right? So once you're breaking down, you do this breakdown. This is an example that you use. Any questions so far? Are we good? I'm also mindful of the time.
We getting a copy of this recording, Leslie?
Yes, it will be. We'll post it on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh, that's not right. So this is another sample breakdown sheet that you can use. So for each scene, you should have a copy of this. And this is if you're doing this is the hard copy method. Now, if you're using Movie Magic, all of this is on the program for you. So the breakdown sheet, let's say this is scene 1, page count 28, the date that you would have done it, the production company, your project title, Jody robs a bank. Let's say it's scene 2. The scene name is Jody robs a bank. Interior D. And the script page, you write on the script page, the location name. And the location name is if you already know, let's say we're using the RBC Bank in Maraval, then you put that location there. Description, you do a brief highlight, scene where Jody points gun at bank teller. Yes, I'm seeing Jody's face, so Jody been getting called plenty. Now you break it down, the cast, how many characters in the scene? That's Jody, that's the bank teller. She's there. Then you might have, if the manager comes and intervenes, it will be Jody, the bank teller manager. Stunts, if Jody needs to jump over the counter and like do like a nice little skate with the gun, that's a stunt. Can Jody do that? We'll notify that. Any extras, all the other characters that will be in the bank reacting. Any extras silent. So you have ones just back in the background. So you have the ones who interacting, and then you have the ones who just being fillers. Any special effects needed? Would we see any blood? Any sort of interaction in the scene that's adding value. The prop might be a gun, the vehicle, where we don't have any vehicles inside of the bank. The wardrobe, what is Jody wearing? What are the bank tellers wearing? Is there a particular color palette for this bank? And let me just also say here, find out from the director as early as possible what is the theme and the tone of the film. And of course, what is the color palette? There is always an aesthetic and there's a world that's being built. And the best example to use is Barbie. We've seen Barbie. You understand that there was a specific color palette style that the director wanted. That if they didn't get that, it would have changed the whole dynamic of the Barbie film. So you really want to understand what the director's vision is when you are breaking down, because you really don't want to make the director lose what they want out of it. If the director is not happy, your production goes to, so you want to be mindful of that. Right, so makeup and hair, any particular look and feel for Jodie's character, the bank tellers, the sound effects and the music happening in the scene, or this is a post song, so you want to be mindful of that. Any special equipment could be a fog machine, a confetti machine, anything that's there within the scene, and any production notes you're noting. Maybe you could say a production note might be Jodie knows how to use a gun, or so just to identify what works. You are doing this for every single scene. Now, for your schedule, of course, how you're breaking it down, you can do several formats. Like I mentioned, you could do the paper, you have the Movie Magic software, which is fine. And then you have online sites. There's Gorilla, Studio Binder has a really good breakdown option that you can use as well. So you can choose whichever ones you want. Now, with your shooting schedule, as we know, time is money. And right, so the old school method, so no long time, they would actually literally print out strips of paper, print out all of the scenes, and then move it around to come up with the shooting schedule. And for those who don't know, the shooting schedule is the order in which you will be filming the movie. The order may not be in chronological order, right? So that's where you're taking all of the scenes from all the whole script, and you're saying, okay, how many times did Jodie go to the bank? Jodie went to the bank 5 times. You're filming all the bank scenes on the same day. Even if it's story-wise, it's day 1, day 5, and day 17. You're filming, so that's what we mean by your shooting schedule. You're moving the scenes around in the order of location, most times. So this is the Movie Magic version. This is what it looks like when you're breaking it down. So you'll see day 6, doorway, day 7, the drugstore, but day 8, we're also filming the drugstore as well. So sometimes if day 7, depending on, right, so day 7, you could see, and if you can see that it's saying it's 3 4/8 of a page, which means it's 3 pages. If it's probably additional characters, so you don't want to film too much on that day because it might have a lot of talking and you have to now film it first, second day. Now, in theory, we try to do, Saran, you have a question?
Yes. So do you film according to how many pages in a script?
Yes.
So what is the maximum amount of pages that you have to film?
So for a feature film, no, this is a whole different thing, but the standard we look at is 3 to 5 pages a day. So that's 3 to 5 pages a day. Of course, it depends if you have multiple characters, it depends on the location, it depends on the activity happening in the scene. So if it's a fight sequence, but it's 3 to 5 pages, then you want to know how much you can pull off per day. So you still want to, as the standard, 3 to 5. But if it's 2 characters for the entire movie, and these 2 characters are very good with each other, there's good chemistry, it's a limited location, you might be able to do 10 pages a day, depending on the setup. But the standard that I will have to professionally say on camera is 5 to 6 pages a day. But there are exceptions to the rule. Now, if you look at Thursday, you'll see it's 4 and 5/8 of a page. It's different locations, but most likely the locations might be nearby, so that you'll be able to say, okay, we'll start with Ernie's cab, then we'll move across to the factory, which is fine. So you want to be able to know. And another thing that will determine your budget would be the actual locations. This is why the second person you hire is your locations manager, your scout. So yes, you have the script. And I can do a breakdown in theory, but until I know where the actual locations are, then I still have to go and do another shooting schedule where I can say, okay, we know we're filming in Arima, we're filming in Chagonas, we're filming in Port of Spain. So now I will film all of my Port of Spain scenes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I might have a break. We'll have a day off. And then the Friday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll do Arima. The next week we'll do Point Fortin. So you break it down also based on location, actual filming location. Now, what are the types of reports? And I will show you samples of all these because I know it can be a little Sometimes it could be a little confusing. So we do have the chronology, and the chronology is when you break down the script in its actual form. So the story-wise, it's the scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, all the way to scene 141. That's the chronology of the film. And then you have the one-liner or the shooting schedule, which is telling you how you will be filming each day, the different scenes. And then your day out of days, once you do the breakdown, you will know, okay, how many days do we actually need Jody? How many days do we need the vehicle? How many days do we need the animal wrangler? So you're just breaking it up like that. And of course, budget. So what determines the budget? Your shooting schedule or your one-liner will determine how much money you actually have to spend. Because then you'll know how many days you need people, the elements of it, the breakdown. Do not underestimate hiring somebody to do a good shooting schedule for you, because that is where you'll know exactly what your options are. So what I will say as well, if you have an idea to make a film, maybe hire somebody to do a breakdown for you before. Say, okay, tell me what this will cost before you even start looking for the money, before you start talking to anybody else. Get a line producer to break it down for you. Or, well, yeah, the line producer will give you the budget. ADs may not necessarily know the cost of things. The line producer will say, oh, well, based on this, this might cost you about 5 million. And you'll be like, oh, that's too much. And now you know how to go back and maybe edit, or you'll know how much money you need to raise to be able to make your film. So get the breakdown first. Right, so the day out of days, we call them dudes. For each element in the script, the day out of days will determine the finances needed. And of course, your cast, so if your lead actor is filming for 5 days, then you can budget to hire that person. And of course, depending on, and sometimes the actor might only be available for a certain period, so you only have that actor that time. Now, that can cost you more money too, but if the actor is a high-level actor, you know it's going to add value to your film, it's going to help you make money, because the minute you tell people, oh, this actor is attached to your film, then it is worth it. But if it might be a secondary character, being a little bit of a drama person, saying they could only do certain days, that literally affects your production, and it affects your cost and your budget. And you may want to not hire that person. And of course, once you have cast on board, please let them sign off on your days, but also allow for a bit of production flexibility to it. Because I'll be honest, when we were doing Mixed Up, we supposed to film Mixed Up since last year, right, December. And a lot of things happened, and Mixed Up finally, we filmed it May of this year. So there are a lot of things that may happen. You want people on your project that may understand it to an extent, because I mean, December to me is a long time to have people waiting for production. So you also want to be aware that you have certain nuances that you may be dealing with based on, I'm being recorded, so I wouldn't say. But yeah, we had some things we had to deal with. Okay, so this is what a day out of days look like. So you would see, okay, let's say we have characters 1 to 17. And let me just explain what the Vicky. So character 1, we call them number 1 on the call sheet. That is the person who has the most amount of screen time. So if you see your number 1, this format will not change. Once you do a breakdown, the person with the most lines or the most, no, depends. So because some high-level actors or characters may want to still be number 1 on the call sheet, even if they're just appearing as a guest. That could be if it's like I would say like a Brad Pitt or Denzel Washington. Even if they're showing up twice to film, they might still be placed as number 1. But in theory, you break it down based on screen time. So Vicky is number 1 on the call sheet. Vicky is filming. The SW means start work. That's the first day that you start filming. WWW is work. H is hold. They're not working. WWW work. And then WF is when they finish work. So you would give this document to your casting director. Costume will get this. Props will get this listing. Your production coordinator will get this to know how many persons on set for food purposes. And the reason why the production coordinator will also get this, let's say Ricky has a very bad allergy to peanuts. So you'll know, okay, when number 8, when number 8 is on set, we need to limit any sort of peanut items. So this day out of days is extremely important when you are breaking it down. So you'll know the needs of it. You can generate a day out of days report for anything, for the vehicles, for the animals, for any sort of specific props. So you'll know how many days each item is needed on set. So that's what this is. We good? All right. Now, the other factors you want to take consideration of your day breaks. So the time off during filming and your turnaround time. Now, I rarely ever break this rule. I have to confess, I kind of broke it on the last production I did. But you have to allow for a 12-hour turnaround. So you normally will film for 12 to 14 hours. And I really say a 12-hour day. And the 2 extra hours would normally be for like locations where it always lasts, the grip and electric, and of course your ADs. So the ADs are behind your grip and electric doing the final backup, because remember, locations cannot leave until everybody leave the location. So you film, you have a 12-hour day, and then it's mandatory, and it's actually, it's the industry standard to allow a 12-hour turnaround. That means, and really what the turnaround means is when I get home, that is when my 12-hour starts. We do not do that all the time in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's not ideal. It's not the standard. So you really should try when you are breaking down your scenes, or as a producer, you really want to tell them, I really want to aim for the 12-hour turnaround, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong. People get in accidents, people just, it's not ideal when you don't allow people to rest. The background extras, who is paying? Are you paying the actors? Do you have volunteers? This will cost you, because a lot of times you might do an initial breakdown and you say, okay, well, maybe we could have 5 extras in the background, and then you talk to the director and they want 200 boats of one location. We can't give you 200 boats, we can give you 5 boats, right? And in each boat, you have people in each boat and each person holding signs. So what is that going to cost us? So you have to be mindful of that when you're breaking down your script. And special equipment, any cranes, any drones, any helicopters, anything major. Let me just check the message. Although some departments need to work during, oh yes, true, Jody. And this is where Jody made a very good point, where some departments will still be working. And this is where if you have enough money, you allow the departments to hire more staff. So that if one group is working on scene day 1 and 2, then you have another team who will be doing days 3 and 4. So people really get time to rest. This is if you have enough money and resources. So, but yes, Jody, wardrobe always working, props working, people set dressing, the dressers always working. Locations, and of course you want to factor in the type of location. Do you need to have police presence 24/7? Some locations you do, and paying for police will cost you more money, and that cost actually balloons. Some locations will charge us, if you're going places like Autonola, if you're going to different spaces may charge high value. And now as a producer, if you're thinking of prep, you start to think, can I get sponsorship for this? Can I maybe get that particular location to come on as a partner? And then you can tell them, we'll do ads for you. So this is where you're thinking of, how can I now make money or save money when I'm making this film? Right, so you want to pay attention, things do add up, right? So you want to check the additional days, as simple as when you don't make a day. So this is why, Saran, we go for the 4 to 5 pages a day initially, because then if you only film on day 1, in fact, I always schedule day 1 as like 3 pages. It's my easiest day, at least when we work with a local crew, because that's when you're kind of onboarding. Things usually start at least, like, I know it's a science now, right? Day 1, you will start 3 hours late, and then we'll not make the day. And so it's like, so now I know, okay, once I'm doing a film, I will factor in a very easy day 1 where everyone kind of getting into the groove of it. So it doesn't cost me money and I have to add on an additional day. Your locations will cost you money, extras will cost you money. Second meal, let me explain what second meal is. So remember, you're working 12-hour days. You'll have breakfast. So when your cast and crew arrive on set, there's breakfast. Remember, now we're thinking of cost, right? So the reason why you feed people on a set is you don't want them to leave to go, because that time is money, and you don't want people to bring in certain types of meals that can get people sick or get themselves sick. So we control the food. So you have breakfast, and then 6 hours after breakfast is lunch. And 6 hours after lunch is when you would have like It doesn't have to be like a second meal, but it might give them something to go home because you're leaving after your 12-hour day. Now, if you are going longer than 12 hours, this is where your pockets start to feel the pinch because you have to feed people, and what we call that is second meal. And that's mandatory. I have seen productions shut down because people didn't get fed on time. This is why time is very important. You have to have the breaks. You have to say, okay, now that's lunch. Sometimes they might have a walk-in lunch, or we call it a French lunch where people eat on the go. We try not to do that, but again, when you're doing a guerrilla film, certain things happen. But you do break for lunch. You have either a 45-minute lunch or a 1-hour lunch. And even during lunch, grip and electric might still be working. So you have to find ways to allow grip and electric to be able to still have a sit down. And another thing I want you to be mindful of as well with the scenes. When you are breaking down a sequence, you might say, okay, if it's an interior scene, nighttime, you might say, okay, we might film that for 2-3 hours. But to set the scene with the right lighting might take 90 minutes. So you want to be able to allow for the pre-rigging, you call it pre-rigging. So grip and electric will go in prior to actually filming the scene and set it, all the lights and all the setup. So you want to be mindful of knowing how to do your breakdown to allow for the right amount of time. And of course, overtime. Now, if you're working on a union project, and you will normally see overtime coming in when we work with international filmmakers, we have timesheets. That's a whole different system that we have not really started using in Trinidad and Tobago, but eventually we do want to factor it in. Once I work longer than 12-hour days timeline, I start to check overtime. And I say I, meaning the international person. And now the producer will need to pay for overtime. So when you are caught up in an overtime situation, what do you do? Do you say, okay, maybe let's end and pick up tomorrow? So is it going to cost you more money to pay every single person overtime, or will it cost you more money to have an extra day? And that's the type of things you need to start thinking about when you factor in overtime. Time is money. Now, other things I want you all to consider, the rehearsal time. You have to factor in time for your actors to rehearse, to get to know each other, for the head of departments to have a lot of consultations and conversations with the director, for you as the pre-production person to know, okay, where are getting this money from? Or do we have enough? Are we putting things in place to be able to let everything run as smoothly as possible? You want to look at your SFX, VFX, stunt training. And I have done all types of productions where we had to bring in stunt coordinators and we had to do the whole thing. And it takes time, and it's a lot of discussions and conversations that must be had. And of course, any sort of prop set, locations, or wardrobe, the time and finances must be allocated properly to prepare for day one. And when you're thinking about props and wardrobe, and Jody will tell us, you need multiples, because sometimes in a particular situation, the character might need 10 of the exact same piece of item, depending on what is happening in the sequence. So if Jody is jumping over the teller counter in a big sequence, we might need to have multiples of that outfit for different takes. Because if we have to do that take 4 times, we should have 4, or at least maybe 6 of the same outfit, just to make sure that every time she jumps over, if anything were to happen to the outfits, then we have the option of, editing and changing it. So you want to be very mindful of that. All right, so before I end, I did say I want to show you all the mixed up program. In the interim, while I look for it, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Let's make sure. All right. Okay, so what I want to show you when we are doing the pre-production process, you will do a daily prep schedule. And a prep schedule is telling you exactly what you will be doing for each day leading up to principal photography. Right, so normally you'll put the date, you'll say, okay, this is very standard. And now the second AD or your production coordinator can do a prep schedule. This is the week, and it's telling you literally a breakdown of every single thing. Now, this prep schedule will go to the cast and the crew. But what you'll normally do on a feature film is you'll separate the cast from the crew. So I normally will send 2 emails. The crew will get 1 email with more details, and then the cast will get the email with only cast-related things. They don't need to be bothered with all the drama that we're dealing with. And so this is what this looks like. If you're on a production and you're not seeing a prep schedule, chaos, because the reason why this is important is that everyone will know what's happening and you know how to put things in place. And normally either the coordinator or the second AD will call before this is generated each head of department to say, okay, tell me what's going on with you. Do you have a meeting tomorrow? Who you, whatever. And so now the head of department will say, oh yes, I actually have a meeting with the animal wrangler tomorrow, meeting this person. And what I love about the filmmaking process is we're all on the same page and we all share information. It's not like corporate. It's a very much family environment, because if I don't know what you're doing, then the whole production falls, right? So you have to be very open and very transparent when you are doing a film or a TV series or a commercial or a music video. It's all the same thing. And so you do all of that leading up to principal photography. Do not underestimate this here. You see this? So this camera test. That's important. And as a producer, please sign off on your visuals before you go to camera. And we haven't, we could talk about Video Village, we could talk about playback and DIT. That's maybe for another lunch and learn. But you really want to be mindful of everything that's happening during the filmmaking process before you actually lock your film and you can't make any changes. All right, so this is what a shooting schedule looks like. So you'll see all the cast members. Oh, I don't know why that's right. So all the cast members will be there. So Anaisha is characters 1 on the call sheet. We go all the way down to food delivery guy. This is all film interior. So you see, we'll do the breakdown. Now, we have the day we're filming scenes 1, 2, 5, and 4. We're in the bedroom, and then we move to the living room, and then we're in the kitchen. This was a crazy day. This day did not happen in this way, right? So we were look at this. So 15 pages because we were using a multiple camera setup interior. And as much as we wanted to do that, we did not make the entire day, but we were able to make up for it after. We got down to doing like, look at this, 23 pages a day. But again, it's because it was more theater style, multiple cameras, so we don't have to do different takes with the different close-ups. So if you want to do more scenes in a day, be very mindful of your setup in terms of what you have in place, right? Very mindful about that, right? So this will tell you, so everyone who's working on the production will have this document. This may change, so if we have maybe, which is what we experienced a lot. Some of the characters were not available on some of the days. So then we had to do over a breakdown to move things around. But then I had to be, because I was doing the breakdown, I had to be very mindful of, even if one character is not available, how will that affect the call time for the other characters in terms of the different filming location, the scenes. So it's a lot of logistics you have to consider when a character tells you that they're not able to be there. Yes, and then the other thing I want to show you all, because it's 12:54, right, the call sheet. So again, a call sheet is very important. This is what you will see well, we try to send a call sheet 6 p.m. before the next day. Sometimes call sheets go out late, but the call sheet is very important. It tells you everything that's happening on that particular day. So it will tell you, of course, this is a masthead. You call it the masthead. So you know who is responsible for the production should anything go wrong. FilmTT, who's the showrunner, Richard Ragobarson, the director, DP's Nigel Thompson. The set cell is normally the ADs, maybe the production coordinator. So that's actually who you will call should anything happen. You mentioned the weather, you talk about high, low, the wind, the precipitation, and it's always good when you're doing exterior locations to know sunrise and sunset. If you're filming in studio, well, that's the value of studio, you don't need to know that. But the sunrise, sunset is very important for filming purposes. You will put the date, you will put how many filming days, so it's 1 of 6. When you do feature films, you'll see 1 of 32, 1 of 24, fun times. The crew call, no, I like that I have administrative people here because I want to explain. The crew call and everywhere else in the world is when all of the cast were on set and you're going to do your first block and your first conversation for the day. In Trinidad and Tobago, our crew call is when we reach to the actual location. That is not accurate, all right? That is only a Trinidad and Tobago phenomenon. Crew call, so but if you see crew call, it means you should have been at the location 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. You have your breakfast. So at 9 a.m. you are ready to work. This is what the crew call means. So I'm hoping that I can share that nugget and let's go and preach the gospel. So when the international filmmakers come in and I have to normally educate them and tell them what our version of crew call means, right? And of course, you will put lunch. Lunch is at 2 p.m., which is normally 6 hours after our crew call. Now for pre-calls, see grid, I'll show you all that snippet. That means that some individuals on the production will have a different call time. It's mostly an earlier call time, which is fine. That they will come and have to either, if it's the set dressers, the pre-rigging process will happen. Now the base camp is where everyone will come and settle, where you'll have your meals, you'll have your hair and makeup wardrobe. You will identify where parking is at location 1, we're parking at Star Studios. Of course, you ought to identify the nearest hospital. And then this is the breakdown of what we actually did day 1. We did, I can't remember, I think we did, if we did put on these 13 pages, I'm not sure. But of course, time of day in the story, the cast numbers, remember the cast ID that we looked at? So you will always see it repeated in numbers. We're not going to put the names up here, but you'll see how many pages in each scene, the number of characters here. So you'll see we have, okay, so Keshala is number 1 on the call sheet. This is the first day everybody's starting. So you'll see start work. This is pickup if they're coming with their own vehicle. So the answer is own. Now on some productions, we have to pick people up. So you'll see we'll do a transportation note. So you'll see the transportation note down there if we have to pick people up. Here, makeup wardrobe. So they're going to hair makeup wardrobe at 11 a.m. Blocking. So you realize I said the crew call is 9, but I have the actors doing the blocking, the hair makeup at 11 because I'm aware that day 1 is always an onboarding, settling type of process. I'm blocking at 1 and then they went to set at 1:30, right? So the others who have a later call time at 1 p.m. Right? And of course, if we have any background, we didn't have any background, which would be extras. Breakfast, we're catering for 16 individuals, lunch is 27. And this is what the production coordinator and producers looking at, like, oh God, 27 people have to feed us money. Of course, you will identify who's the producer, who's doing locations, the police, and health. That's also very important. You will break down, remember that lovely breakdown you did prior. You know, will identify on the call sheet the props. So we need a knife, we need a bowl, we need pots on the fire, blah, blah, blah. And when you see GAC, so you'll normally see either like kitchen GAC, bedroom GAC. We call GAC the elements of the space. So I don't need to identify every single thing that's needed in a kitchen. I will just say kitchen GAC, unless we need something significant that's now a prop that will be in the kitchen. So having the brown paper bags or the bygone choker, that's now that prop that's used in the scene. And of course, you may need multiples of it because of whatever may be happening. Of course, wardrobe in particular, the apron is needed. And then we need to remember that there's a sound of the doorbell. You do the directions to the space. You can do a nice little Google map, which is fine. Still put the link because people like to still use Waze or Google Maps, which is fine. You still want to do this visual in case sometimes phones lock up. Now, this is the lazy method. What we can do still is zoom in so that you can actually see the actual road and then show where the building is. Sometimes, and I can see if I might probably pull up a Green Days. It's 12:59. Let me go faster. And right, and so you'll have the call. This is now everyone who will be working on the production, and it will tell you their call times. And then, right, 12:59. Any questions, queries, comments, concerns?
That was a guerrilla meeting.
It was a very guerrilla meeting. Yes, it was. But this is just phase 1 because we could go into it and there's a lot more to discuss. When you think about it, let me actually just show you all one. Do I have did I download the Green Days? No, I don't have that here. Probably have another meeting. All right, so thank you all very much for attending our Lunch and Learn pre-production. If you have any questions, you could feel free to send us an email or message and we'll respond. Hi, Dennis, how are you? And that's it. We will send out maybe a questionnaire just to get your feedback. If you want to get more of these, I can do a whole session on prep and production. It's very detailed, but it's fun. And it's one of the main things about filmmaking is really understanding the elements of prep. Right, so that's it. Bye. Yes, Saran, we'll do more of it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.